This show is sponsored by Audible. Fans of It Matters can get a 30-day free trial of Audible Premium Plus. Stay tuned for details. Hello, and welcome to It Matters How We Treat One Another, the social science show. I'm your host, Matthew David Vasco. If you subscribe to this show on YouTube or your favorite podcasting platform, then thank you. We are grateful for each and every one of our subscribers. We are also grateful for our patrons on Patreon. Your support helps to make this episode possible. My guest this episode is Dr. Ashley Ann, a highly skilled individual from the world of psychology and philosophy who is on a mission to help us all heal our trauma, better regulate ourselves, and, in time, heal the world. I think you're really going to love this interview. But first, our inspiring news. If inspiring things are happening in your neck of the woods, then please send us a direct message on one of our social media accounts and let us know. You can find us by our show name on Facebook, Instagram, X, and Blue Sky. This time, our inspiring news comes from Out of This World, because we have absolutely got to talk about the Artemis II mission. I certainly hope that you got the chance to follow our 4 American astronauts as they flew out around the moon and back to Earth. It might sound simple, but it was a mission decades in the making, and it has set the stage for future crewed missions to our moon. If you're interested in space like I am, then I'm sure you were absolutely ecstatic about this successful mission. This will be looked back upon as the mission that changed everything, because from here, we're going to get people living on the moon for extended durations, and that will serve as proof of concept for future crewed missions to Mars. I simply had to talk about this on the inspiring news because I believe it has served to inspire future scientists and engineers the world over. It was wonderful to witness something that made the future seem truly bright indeed. Again, if you know of inspiring things happening in your area, it doesn't have to be anyone going to space. It can simply be people helping people helping animals, or people helping the environment. Then please DM us on our socials and let us know. Thanks. Up next is our feature segment. But first, this show is sponsored by Audible. Did you know that the new movie Project Hail Mary, starring Ryan Gosling, is based on an awesome science fiction novel by Andy Weir, author of The Martian? It's true. I was lucky enough to get to listen to the audiobook on Audible, and I can highly recommend it. And you know the book is always better than the movie, right? Fans of our show can get a free month of Audible Premium Plus just by clicking the link in our episode description or by visiting the podcast page at MatthewVasco.com. Again, that's a free month of Audible Premium Plus just by clicking the link in our episode description or by visiting MatthewVasco.com and clicking podcast. Choose Project Hail Mary, The Martian, or any one of thousands of titles. And now, our feature segment. My guest today is Dr. Ashley Ann. Ashley Ann is a trauma specialist, neurocounselor, educator, TEDx speaker, and founder of the Gravity Point Institute. Through her books and trainings, she hopes to empower folks to resolve their stress and trauma to heal themselves, so together we can heal the world. Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being here. I'm really excited to talk to you. I just feel like you're doing so many great things. I mean, it seems like you have a lot of oars in the water, if I'm being honest. Like, you've got a lot going on.
I appreciate that. I am really trying to, make an impact in the best way possible. And I'm really excited to be here because I love the conversations that you're having about hope and healing and treating each other well. And that's a big part of all of the things that I'm doing.
Well, thank you so much for that nice compliment of the show. Um, I'm flattered. Yeah, I hope that we're doing lots of great things here at the show and having lots of great conversations. I got to be honest and say I feel very fortunate to have so many wonderful guests
Mhm.
on the show. And I feel fortunate to have you on the show because, like I say, I feel like you're doing a lot of important things, and I'm really excited to talk to you about them today. So let me start by mentioning Gravity Point Institute that you founded and asking you to tell us a little bit about what Gravity Point Institute offers to people.
Sure. So the Institute was founded after I had a career as a trauma therapist and a university professor at several universities across the country. And our goal is to create accessible tools for people to heal themselves, um, to do stress work and to do trauma work so that they can handle what's happening in their own lives. Because we firmly believe that when each of us sort of heals our own world, right? We call it our orb of influence, like the reach of our light. And when we're able to really handle and heal ourselves and everything around us, that's how collectively we can heal the whole world. So we are trying to create tools to help people heal their own world. Like, how do we make it more accessible and easy? And that really came from, my own life of trying to heal myself and figure out my own stuff.
Tell me a little more about that. What kind of healing did you engage in for yourself? If I can ask, if it's okay.
Yes, it's actually a big part of my story. So I feel like I was born as an earth child, like right from the beginning. I have a very open and soft heart, and I feel very passionate about plants and animals and people being able to live their lives to their fullest. I remember being very little and being very protective of everything and everyone around me. And at the same time, I was really sick all the time. Um, Respiratory infections. I had trouble with my digestion. I had headaches all the time. I couldn't sleep. I also didn't want to get out of bed and was tired all the time. And I watched a lot of people around me suffer in the same way, especially my dad's mom, so my grandmother. She raised me early on. So my sister and I grew up on our family farm, like 80 acres, beautiful land, um, catching kittens and, growing up alongside pigs and in the country. And it was really peaceful and lovely, but my grandmother was sick a lot. She suffered a lot when my dad was first born, and then I watched her sort of struggle with dementia later on in her life. So I was sick and I was watching a lot of other people around me get sick. And it's a heartbreaking thing to watch life suffer to me, to watch, you know, people and plants and animals not be able to experience their fullest potential. And I was really struggling when, after I graduated my undergraduate. So this had happened in my childhood. I was always sick. In my teens, I was sick. In college, I was sick. It just was low grade sickness that no doctor had any explanation for. And I had access to a lot of health care. So that was really saying something. So I feel like because I was sick and struggling, and, I watched people struggle with not only their physical health, but their mental health. by the time I was in my mid 20s, I really wanted to help other people. So that's why I became a counselor in the first place. That's why I started training as a therapist. And I had excellent training, like some of the top-notch training that, you could have, I was surrounded by experts all the time. And I was in my own therapy and I was taking care of myself. But as soon as I started as a full-time therapist, I burnt out.
Mm.
Um, so all the illness that had already been happening in my life got even worse. Like I was even my skin broke out worse than I was in a teen than when I was a teenager. I, could not sleep. I was very anxious, very depressed. And everyone around me was sort of saying, you just need to take care of yourself. Um, but the problem was, is I was taking care of myself. I was meditating and journaling and going to yoga, and I was going to therapy sometimes once or twice a week and doing energy work and getting facials and like doing all the things. And none of it was working. So I really, after spending a lot of time and money getting my degree as a therapist, it was very clear that doing therapy and helping other people was a big part of what was making it worse. And so I almost quit my job. And I was only like 8 or 9 months in. But at that point, it was sort of a turning point in my whole life where I stopped kind of listening to the available information. I don't think the available information was wrong. I don't think that advice was mistaken, but it just wasn't enough personally for me. And so at that point, I started my own research and started asking my own questions about, well, why do people actually get sick? What is going on underneath the respiratory issues? What's happening underneath the anxiety? What's happening underneath the depression, underneath the fatigue, et cetera, et cetera? And I really started to understand the difference between self-care and self-regulation. And all of my work now is about teaching people how to regulate themselves. Because once I started looking at how to regulate my own feelings, my own thoughts, and my own actions, and regulating my own nervous system and my own relationships, everything started to change. I slowly started to heal. My body got better. My mind got clearer. My relationships became more loving. Um, so everything that I've done up until this point in my career has been about building a system around what I learned. Like, how do I take what I learned about self-regulation and healing yourself and make it super simple for everyone else? And that's really what I'm doing at the Institute now.
I see.
Mhm.
So I want to go more into that, but I also wanted to talk about your TEDx talk because in your introduction, I mentioned that you were a TEDx speaker. And I, of course, watched your TEDx talk. And something you said in that talk really struck me, which is that you said, and I think it kind of goes along with the self regulation work you're talking about. You said we need to stop denying each other our emotions. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. So let me kind of back up and define emotion from my perspective, because that's really what changed for me when I started doing my own research. Um, Emotion, what I found out, is really just literally the word means energy in motion, right? Emotion, energy in motion. And what we know in quantum mechanics and quantum physics is that absolutely everything in existence is made of energy, everything, right? The chair I'm sitting on, even the sound that's traveling from me to my computer, from your computer to your ears, right? Like that's all energy. And what we know is that energy in motion is really important. Like energy is meant to move. Life is meant to be dynamic and ever changing. And so what I started to understand, because emotion was a huge part of my training as a therapist. Like, we talked about feelings. Emotions were primary to everything that I did. But when I started doing the research, I really started breaking down, okay, what is emotion and how can we understand it better? And this is the framework that I've kind of put together that makes a lot of sense to me. So, energy is experienced as a lot of different things. In our bodies, we experience energy as sensation, right? So if my stomach starts to growl, that's moving energy in my stomach, right? And it turns into a sensation that I can feel. We also have energy moving through our minds in the form of thoughts, right? So I can think I'm hungry. Something's going on. I'm hungry. And I can create a story about that. Oh, maybe I want a sandwich. Maybe I want a pizza. Maybe I just need an apple, right? So our mind experiences energy as stories. So now we have sensations that we feel in the body and stories we think in our mind. And then we also have our relationships, right? You talk about this all the time. How we treat each other matters. And it's partially because we are always exchanging energy. So we create signals as a form of energy. So right now I'm waving my hands, that's nonverbal signals, or I'm talking, and that is a verbal signal, right? So then we have signals that manage energy in our relationships. So emotion is the ability for energy to move through our body, through our mind, and through our relationships. So when we're talking about emotion, we're not just talking about, woo-woo feelings and, like the mushy stuff and expressing ourselves. We're actually talking about our physical health, our mental health, and our relational health. So one of the things that I talked about the most in my TEDx talk is this idea that when we don't allow ourselves to feel and think and act, when there are oppressive forces in the world, or when somebody shuts us down, or when, we feel too embarrassed to be honest about what we're feeling, like that really messes with us because emotion is not just our feelings, it's literally our health. So when we are encountering these oppressive things, whether they're big or small, doesn't matter, if they shut us down and they stop our energy from moving, that is the thing that makes us sick because our body and our mind and relationships are all meant to be connected, right? Like how I feel in my heart
Mhm.
should match what I say, and that should match what we do together. But when oppression and unfortunate circumstances or toxic relationships or, problems develop, that gets disconnected and we literally break. We have a wound, and that is trauma. So emotion is everything, not because it's about how we feel. It's really about how we function.
Fascinating.
Mhm.
I mean, all of what you're saying really connects with me. I mean, I get it. It makes sense to me. And yet it's a different paradigm, right? It's a different way of looking at emotions maybe than we have
Mhm.
in the past. It's a maybe a much more tactile way in a way because all of these things you're talking about are the things we experience every moment of every day.
Yes.
Did I
Yes.
touch on something there?
Yes. That I feel like you captured the whole point of what I'm trying to teach people, which is that our feelings and thoughts and actions are happening all the time. All the time. We can't really turn them off. So
Yeah.
emotion is a part of our everyday lived experience. And most of us don't know how to sort of feel, think, and act, and feel, think, and act, and to process a lot of what's going on in our life, right? Like the way I think about it is that stress is just pressure, and stress is happening all day, every day, like you just said. Whether that's, our kid coming home, that's a stressor, or we're finding out bad news on, social media, or we are in an accident or there's a natural disaster. Like stress happens all day, every day, which means that we are responding to it all day, every day with feelings, thoughts, and actions, feelings, thoughts, and actions, which makes it really easy to sort of get thrown off because my goodness, the world is overwhelming right now. it's hard to respond to what's going on. So it's pretty it makes us really vulnerable to being overwhelmed and to losing hope because quite literally our emotions are getting shut down.
Mm. Yeah. How do we cure that? How do we treat that? What do you recommend to people who feel maybe as though their emotions are suppressed, repressed, oppressed?
Mhm. So I will say that that is the work that we're doing right now at the Institute is I just published my first book on this topic because I think that the question that you're having is the question we're all asking right now. Um,
Mm.
I think that before the pandemic, we were already, kind of in this weird world and already stressed, but then we all went into quarantine and nothing has felt the same since
Mm.
then, right? Like you and I
Yeah.
were kind of talking about that earlier before we hit record. Um, and there are all these cultural movements that are happening too, and
Mm.
governmental issues that are happening. Like there's so much. And I feel like, at least in with the people that I'm talking to, the question that we're asking is exactly the question that you just asked, which is, what do we do? Right? What do we do when we're overwhelmed? What do we do when we're losing hope? What do we do when we hear another bad thing? Um, because I think that most people want to do something. I think
Yeah.
most people feel overwhelmed and feel heartbroken and feel very motivated to do something about the
Mm.
state of the world. I believe that the majority of people are hopeful and want good things. The issue and the pain point that I see so many people struggle with is they don't know how to get to that point of what to do. And
Mm.
so many problems in the world feel too overwhelming. It's sort of like, where is my access point? Where do I even begin to addressing, climate change or the complications of AI, or, how do I protect democracy? How do I help a loved one who has gotten a significant diagnosis, right? Like we have all these things that it feels like there's no way we can do anything. And I think what happens for a lot of people is that then we don't do anything, not
Mm.
because we don't care,
Mm.
not because we are irresponsible, not because we don't know about what's going on, but because we don't have a clear path of how to handle what's going on. And I echo a lot of, you know, what our sort of holistic or wellness or social movement leaders say, which is that at the end of the day, we have to take individual responsibility for whatever we can do in that moment. How can we handle what's going on in our life? And my job is to give people tools for how to figure that out. So, to answer your question, I have looked at the research for 20 years and I have done all of the experimental trial and error. And I've taken everything that we know about how the human brain works, how relationships work, how stress works, how does it turn into trauma, all the things. And I have boiled it down into something that people can actually understand. So if somebody is listening right now, I actually have a free guidebook that has what to do when you're overwhelmed in 5 steps. Like I have boiled it down when you're overwhelmed, when you're stuck, when you're feeling like, the world is collapsing and you don't know what to do. The method that I have developed does two things. One, it's going to help you calm down and soothe your system and make you feel like you're more grounded. And that's really the only thing that we can ever do because that influences everything else, right? But the other thing is it helps guide you through a decision-making process so that you can figure out how to do something right in that moment with what you have. And so the guidebook has the 5 steps, and then the book that I have published has all the steps and
Yes.
all the science that anybody can pick up. You don't need a background in trauma. You don't need to have a wellness background or be an expert. You don't need to understand the brain. You just need to be curious and compassionate.
What's the title of your book?
So it is a book series. So it's called Gravity Point Anthology. And this volume one is called A Method to Resolve Stress and Trauma Before It Makes You Sick.
Oh, great title.
Thank you. I think it says what it is.
It zooms right in on that, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Owns right in. Now, can where can people get that? Can they get that just anywhere, or from your website, or?
Yes, from my website. So they can go to gravitypointinstitute.com and we have a bookstore there. So you
Okay.
can, there's a hardcover copy and an ebook copy.
Okay. Now, do you have just out of curiosity? I honestly don't know. Do you have a newsletter or anything? An e-newsletter people can subscribe to?
Yes.
Okay, and they can
So
do that at the website too. Then.
yes, exactly. And just by subscribing to the free newsletter, I send them the guidebook as well. So
Okay.
if they really, want to start their practice right now, they can get those 5 steps.
And that's enough to get them started that way.
Yes, it is. It
Nice.
gives you a little bit of a background and then 5 steps that you can use right now to get that energy in motion again and to start flowing and to um, figure out what to do with what's going
Excellent. And you say self care doesn't cut it. I think you even mentioned this earlier in the interview,
on.
but self regulation does. Now, what's the difference between those two things, and why is self regulation the thing we should be aiming for?
Sure. So I think that self-care is so important. So I want to be clear about that. So from my perspective, self-care is maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
So self-care is I brush my teeth because I want to maintain them. I brush my hair, I take a shower, I make my bed, I exercise, I make sure my space is clean. That's all self-care stuff, right? Like I talk to people that love and appreciate me. I, prioritize my alone time. That's all about maintaining what we have
Mm-hmm.
and caring for ourselves. We
Mm-hmm.
need that.
Yeah.
The thing is, I think that the world has so many great self-care resources. Like there are so many meditation apps and wellness models out there. There are systems that people can access, and I think we should continue to use them. The reason why I say it doesn't cut it is because it's not enough. So self-care is maintenance, but self-regulation is management.
Mm.
So management is all about tracking your inputs and your outputs, right?
Uh-huh.
Like what is coming into my system and what is coming out of my system. And when I think about regulation, you could talk about the nervous system in the body, but I actually think about the whole human system. So managing your feelings, noticing those sensations, managing your thoughts, noticing those stories, managing your signals, right? And the actions that you're taking in your relationships.
Mm.
So, regulation is about taking that process of emotion and making sure that it keeps moving,
Mm.
not just caring for it, but like I always use the garden analogy. It's sort of
Okay.
like, let's imagine you have 3 different gardens, right? And one is a vegetable garden, one's a flower garden, and one is just tulips. I don't know, I'm just making this up. So, those gardens all need water, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so imagine you have 3 different hoses of water going into those gardens. So you want that water flowing in a really regulated, balanced way, because we know that too little water will dry out and your plants are going to die. But too much water and you're going to drown all your plants and they're also going to die, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you need this sweet spot of
Mm-hmm.
water that's going into these 3 gardens. And that's what self-regulation is about. It's managing how you feel and how you think and how you act so nothing's getting stuck and drying out your gardens, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also you're not also explosive and violent and sort of overly anxious because that will also really negatively impact your life as well. So
Mm-hmm.
self-care is great. Everybody should continue doing that. My hope is to really give people systems that are easy to follow for self-regulation too.
I see. And you have mentioned, I think I saw it on your website, that We are in what you call the dark ages of dysregulation on a societal level, on a world level, and that science is the solution. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What are you referring to, and how do we fix it?
Sure. So, let me first kind of define dysregulation. I think it's a word a lot of people know, but I'll just define it to so that we're clear. So, the human system is meant to be balanced, and that is regulated, right? So your feelings and thoughts and actions, you're constantly moving and you're in a state of balance. So your body feels good and responsive, and your mind feels clear and calm, and your relationships feel like you are both being authentic, but you're also holding yourself accountable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So too much authenticity can be a problem, too much accountability can be a problem, but there's a balance in our relationships. So that is regulation. When you've got those gardens, you got that sweet spot of water, everything thrives and you really don't have to do too much because nature will take its course. Dysregulation is kind of the other side, which is imbalance. So that's when, our feelings and our sensations in our body are stuck and we're not honoring them, or they're too big and overactive and causing a lot of pain. Dysregulation in our minds can look like anxiety and worry, maybe, impulsivity, intrusive thoughts, but it can also look like depression and hopelessness and, really bad thoughts, right, at the same
Mm-hmm.
time. And then our relationships can either be enmeshed and we're too close and we're too depending on other people, or we're like withdrawn and we're really separated. So dysregulation is really about disconnection at its heart, because dysregulation happens when we are disconnected, when our body and our mind and our relationships aren't flowing, emotion is broken, and we are disconnected. So that's dysregulation. And the reason why I say we're in the dark ages of dysregulation is because of how I believe dysregulation is showing up on a very large scale.
Mm-hmm.
So, back before the internet, back before the Industrial Revolution, our feelings and thoughts and actions didn't go very far. They kind of went to our family, and that's it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you had one person or two people or five people or even 20 people who were really violent or really anxious or really dysregulated, their impact only went so far, right? And we could kind of contain that. But then the internet came along and, the Industrial Revolution, and we are more connected than ever,
True.
which means that dysregulation spreads
Mm-hmm.
faster. And a lot of our systems have been built on dysregulation. Like they thrive when people are
Mm-hmm.
anxious. They thrive when people are scared. They thrive when people are overwhelmed. They thrive when people are sick. And so when I say dark ages of dysregulation, what I mean is that humanity is sort of dysregulated on a very large scale. And that feels like a big problem. That feels like a really big problem. And I will admit that when I look too much at the big picture, I kind of want to crawl under my bed and never leave, right? Like it can be very overwhelming. I struggle with hopelessness too. So I don't want to be, overly positive about things, but I am very hopeful. And the reason that I'm very hopeful is because of the fact that I'm a trauma therapist and I have seen thousands of healing cycles, thousands, right? I've seen thousands of healing cycles in my clients when they are going through stuff. I've seen my students when I was a university professor and also those who go through the institute. And then I've also gone through thousands of healing cycles myself. And what I know without a doubt is that things always feel worse as they are getting better. And it seems really counterintuitive, kind of cruel, but like the reason why things feel worse when they're getting better is because the pain and the broken parts are coming to the surface so we can see them.
Mhm.
And so we have to feel them to heal them. And the reason why I think that science is the key to this, and like, especially the science that I've kind of pulled together. So, my science is neuroscience and interpersonal neurobiology, but I'm also looking at the yogic Vedas. So, Veda actually means science. So, that's a 5,000-year-old science in yoga. I also look at quantum mechanics, which is cutting edge, and then also metaphysics. So, I'm looking at all of the sciences, and it is very clear that they all agree that the best way to handle and heal mass dysregulation is to heal it one individual at a time. So, understanding that, how to heal yourself, is the most important way to heal the rest of the world.
I see.
Um, yeah. And when I was writing this book, I came upon a bee analogy.
Uh-huh.
This is getting long-winded, but I nerded out because I am autistic, and like I really hone in on things when I find them fascinating. At the same time I was writing this first book, I was also reading about bees, and they are fascinating. So they are what is called a superorganism. Have you heard that of a
Yes.
superorganism?
Hmm.
Okay, yeah. So an organism is an individual entity, so a single bee.
Uh,
But bees are actually a superorganism. So they are constantly in connection with each other, chemically, physically, like based on sound, based on nonverbals. So when one bee is healthy and happy, it makes the hive happy and healthy. And when the hive is happy and healthy, the bees are happy and healthy, which seems like a simple concept, but the thing is that we humans are the same way, right? Like I pick up on your energy just by talking to you, right? I pick up on energy of people I'm around, even if we're not looking at each other. So I guess I'm just sharing this because we cannot underestimate the power of one healthy, happy, whole bee in the hive. When we, as a bee, are happy, healthy, and whole, we naturally contribute to everyone around us because humanity is also a superorganism. We just haven't been operating like it.
that's so fascinating that you say that because literally in my last episode, I just did this episode on hope. And one of the things I talked about is how hope spreads and how when you, as an individual, are able to increase your hope, be more hopeful, you are doing a public service in a way, right? Because you are helping others to be more hopeful as well. They see the hope in you and then it spreads. And we might all become more hopeful if enough individuals become more hopeful. It's so fascinating that you say this. I mean, I remember studying transcendental meditation in college and talking then, that long ago. I mean, this is 30 years ago, talking about how uh, uh, they believed, the transcendental meditation folks believed, that when enough people in any given group practice transcendental meditation, it helps the health of the whole group, right? Because the types of things that people are doing through transcendental meditation to calm themselves, to calm their systems, to regulate themselves, right? To use the word you're using, the more that spreads and everyone becomes more well regulated.
Yes. Yes. So I transcendental meditation is something that I do. So you're like speaking my
Oh,
language.
wow.
Yeah. Um, so, and the thing is that yogis have known this for millennia, right? Like we have known this in other sciences, but now if you look at, for example, Joe Dispenza's work,
Mm.
he's actually measuring this. So he will do these global meditations, and then they have data about the crime rates actually dropping. And like they
Wow.
have measurable data that show us how it really does matter how we treat ourselves and how we treat each other. Because when we do that, it is contagious. Part of it is, I don't want to get too nerdy, but like part of it is quantum mechanics and vibration. And like you do have a biofield and an energy field that we can measure. And then part of it is actually neuroscience. So we have cells in our brain called mirror neurons, and their only job is to pick up on the emotions of other people. Like that's all
Mm,
they're there to do. So
yeah.
just by being happy, healthy, and whole and hopeful yourself, like you said, you're doing a great service. And I think I think at least for me, I used to think that being stressed out about things is how I cared about them. Like if I stayed in
Mm,
front of my news feed and I stayed informed and I was overwhelmed and heartbroken and depressed, like that meant that I was really staying informed and doing my civic duty and caring, right?
mm,
And I do think that being informed is super important. And at the same time, I think that we need to do that in a way that honors our nervous system and our limitations as an individual person. If you watch something to the point where you are shut down and hopeless, you serve no function in the hive of humanity.
mm,
And that used to happen to me all the time. I would get stuck and I would see something on social media and it would just derail my day. That's actually why in the book, um, I use one of the examples of like scrolling through your news feed and you find something really heartbreaking. Like, how do you process it?
mm.
Because it might be happening around the world. Um, so, kind of getting back to what we were talking about, I think it's important for us all to remember that being stressed and being depressed does not necessarily, it's like not the right strategy. Like, if we're just being honest, it's not the right strategy. How can we stay informed and then also stay mobilized? That's how we are going to create some real movement around love and creating a positive impact. Because if the most sensitive and high vibing of us can't make an impact, the world is missing out on that sensitive, high vibing impact.
Mm.
And I think that the most sensitive of us really are the ones who need to be the most mobilized right now.
That leads me perfectly to my next question, because that was exactly what I was going to ask, is how can we all, especially the most sensitive of us, better cope with the overwhelming stress in the world?
Mhm.
How do we do that?
So I could go into my method because I really do believe that that's the way to do it. Um, but I think maybe I'll use an example for myself and kind of walk through the high level of what the method looked like for me because I use it all the time.
Okay.
Um, so it was like maybe a month ago or so now that I popped on social media and I'm not on social media a ton, but I do like to get some of my news from it because I there are some trusted people I have. And then honestly, my algorithm is tailored to like funny cat and dog videos. Like that's what I that's what I watch. So I turned on social media to kind of I was kind of feeling funky and I wanted to feel a little bit better. So I was looking for some inspiration. And I did not find it. Instead, I found a video and it was just a short video and I didn't even click on it, but the title was something very heartbreaking and stress inducing to me.
Mm,
And it was coming from actually like a very spiritually focused account, which is why my algorithm showed it to me. But nonetheless, the title of the video itself was enough to create stress for me. And it totally derailed me at first because I felt like the facts were distorted
mm,
in the title. And so first I went down a rabbit hole of like what actually happened, right? I'm not
mhm,
clicking on this video because I don't trust it, but what actually happened. So then, it was 10 minutes of being like looking at the actual documentation, looking at the actual news of what happened and being like, okay, that title was misinformation, even disinformation, right? Like,
mhm,
and I think of disinformation as dysregulating information,
mm.
right? Like that is what it was, dysregulating information. And it worked. I think for most people, it would have been interesting. Somebody would have clicked it. And a lot of, people are looking for clicks because we need them, right? We want people to see our stuff. So I got to the point where I knew the facts. And then I was like, oh, but this still sucks because if I can't even trust this account with this kind of high vibing message to tell me the truth and to not be dysregulating, like, where are we in the world?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I spiral, right? Like, that's when I spiral and I get hopeless and
Right.
So, kind of like a fast forward through what the method looks like. Um, the first thing I did is I turned off my phone. Like, I recognized we're done. This is not going to be helpful anymore, right?
Right.
So, the first step really is surrender, complete surrender. And I think that's hard for, at least for me, I'll speak for myself as a type A, like healer, helper person. Like, I usually want to do something right away, but that's not always the best thing, especially because I was dysregulated. Like, I was hopeless. The only thing that I was going to spread was more despair. So I put down my phone, I walked away, I went for a walk outside, spent time with my dog, and I took a break from it. I did not do anything. I didn't try to feel better. I didn't try to fix the situation. I didn't talk to anybody about it either. Um, so then after that, like, that's the first step in the method. And there are more steps within that, but surrender is the most important thing. Release the reins. So then the next thing I did was I started to rehearse in my head how I wish it would have gone. Like, what do I wish that title would have been? What would my highest hope for what this world would look like? And so I got really clear on that. Like, I wish this person would have had this title. I could have trusted it and it would have been clear and factual, right? So I hold
Mm.
that in my energy and I hold that in my heart. And then the next thing I did was reach out for support. I just kind of talked about what had happened and I didn't vent. We did definitely complain and, got our emotions out, but we didn't leave it there. We got very clear on, like, okay, what do I want to do? Especially because I have a tiny platform, right? Like, what do I want to see? And then I made my action plan. And my action plan was actually to record a podcast episode about this circumstance. And that's what I did. So then that was my action. So I went from being dysregulated in despair, but I didn't do anything from that place because had I gotten behind a microphone and created a podcast episode on that, I would have just disseminated more dysregulation and created more of the problem, thinking I'm making an impact, but I'm not.
Mm.
So instead, what I did is what I call alchemy, right? Like, I transformed my dysregulation into regulation, and I figured out a way to create something and to do something impactful in as little way as I could, right? I couldn't change that person and their title and what was going on in the world, but I could take the power that I have to create something beautiful, more aligned with the world that I hope we have. So that's kind of like the what the method looks like, and I have all these steps written down so that people can repeat them over and over again.
Fantastic. Thank you for that sort of walkthrough of what the process looks like. I think that was illuminating to me. I hope that it will be to our listeners as well, because it really did give me a better sense of what your process is about, you know. I want to kind of change the subject a little bit. I hope that's okay. You did mention it earlier. Um, you said that you were diagnosed with autism as an adult.
Mhm.
And that was very interesting to me because, uh, so, I mean, I don't want to overstate it, but I know adults who have lived their whole lives and uh, gotten to a point where just they something fell off, and so they saw someone about it, and then got a diagnosis as an adult that really. I again don't want to overstate it, but kind of changed their lives, right? I mean, yeah, I see you're doing blew my mind, yeah, it's just that changes everything for them, and life gets better, life improves. Can you tell us a little about how that went for you, how you ended up getting diagnosed with autism as an adult, and has it changed your life or improved your life in any way?
Yeah, so I will tell you that it was a complete surprise. So, um, I was starting my PhD at the time, and as part of that process, so at that point, by the time I got my was in my PhD program, I had already been a trauma therapist for several years. I was already teaching and supervising in a university as a faculty member, and I went to go get my PhD so I could do this research that I'm now bringing into the world. So this book is like a part of my dissertation so long ago that I did. So I came into the program with a neuroscience background. So as part of an opportunity that came up, I could go and get certified in neurofeedback. So neurofeedback is, kind of like everybody has their smartwatches. And if you see your heart rate go up, you can often do something to calm it down. Well, neurofeedback allows us to see brain waves so that then you can regulate your brain waves, which can have all kinds of benefits for your physical and your mental health. So I was doing a certification with two professors that I barely knew because I was only like 2 months into the program. And the three of us, were like part of a team, and there was a big conference room, and we were doing practice sessions on one another. So we would hook up the QEEG, right? If you've ever seen somebody with like all these electrodes on their head, that's what we were doing.
Mhm.
And so we were just doing practice sessions and we didn't think to find anything, but my evaluation came back with like a suggestion of autism.
Mm.
I was like, what?
Mm.
And I sat with it for like that night. But then I came back the next day and I was talking to my professor and I was like, I think this makes a lot of sense. Like if we think about the perseveration and the sensitivities and some of the other things. Um, and I will admit, so I was 29 at the time. That's when I got this realization and started exploring my autistic identity. At that time, I just related to my autism as if it were a sensitivity. Like I really
Uh,
focused on like the mental parts of it and like the sensitivities. And I started to really care for myself differently. That was life changing. So
mm.
I did things like gave up gluten, I gave up dairy, and like I would say 40 to 50% of my problems dropped off just because like I was too sensitive to be processing a lot of the things that I was eating.
Mm.
Um, and I started doing things like wearing earplugs in public because it was too loud and just being careful about, who I was around because now I started to understand that I was very sensitive to groups and to other people's nervous systems. So for a long time, that's how I related to my autism. But it was only recently, in the last few years, so now I'm 39, that I've really started to understand the executive functioning pieces of it and things like task switching and why that's hard for me, like going from one thing to the other or taking a break from my work. If I'm like writing, don't interrupt me or like I'm totally derailed. And also, even the physical stuff, which is that a lot of autistic folks, not all, but a lot of autistic folks have issues with their connective tissues. Like sometimes our tissues are just, our ligaments are a little bit more stretchy and a little bit more loose, which then can impact absolutely everything.
Mm.
And as a woman in a female body who is going through this stage of like in your 30s, you just kind of change, right? Things start to change. As an autistic person, it was much harder. So understanding everything has been a game changer. I think that at first I didn't really like it or want it or felt comfortable with it, especially because I can mask so well. I think there was a little bit of guilt being like, I can't own this because of how I look and how I am in the world, like, and how much education I have access to. Like, it felt really uncomfortable for me to be like, and I'm autistic. But I started to recognize that the more I learned about how an autistic identity changes absolutely everything, I started to kind of lean into it and be like, I think that I need to talk about this because I am able to talk about this. And the truth is, all of my work would not be possible without my autistic identity. My pattern recognition and my ability to hone in and be super focused is why I could notice like different patterns of dysregulation. It's why I can organize things into, easy to follow tools. So me discovering my autistic identity changed my life, made it harder at first, but has made it easier and more enjoyable. And I'm really proud of it now because I realize that I would not be who I am doing the work that I do without my beautiful autistic brain.
Aw, that's really nice. That's beautiful. My
Thanks.
beautiful autistic brain.
Yeah,
There should be a bumper sticker that says that.
maybe I should get one.
Yes, because that's uh I think there can be a stigma around autism because it's difference, right? But it's a neurological difference that once people get attuned to it is completely fine. Like if I have worked with autistic children in the past, and once you get to know the person and notice maybe what triggers them and things like that, they're just like anybody else, you
Yes,
know.
yes.
So
Well,
I think we really do need a my beautiful autistic brain bumper sticker for sure.
yes. And that, speaking to that, I think, children, it's different because they don't always have the language. But one of the things that I've had as an adult and I try to kind of talk about is like, I, I now have better language for it. And I will say like, oh, that's my autism.
Mm,
Like I'll get nervous that somebody's driving too fast, even though they're totally fine, and we'll make a joke about it because I know it's my way of seeing the world or something like that. Like maybe that's not a really good example, but I honor my autism and its truth. And then I can also sometimes laugh at the fact that it is a completely different way of seeing things, but not one that I devalue. Like I really, really value the way I see the world. And I don't think that that would have been possible if I didn't have the autistic identity label. Like to really understand that that was a quality of my brain that I needed to know about so that I could talk about it. And now I mean, that's my model of stress and trauma honors neurodivergence and it takes that into account because I don't think it's a defect. It's just another way of being.
right, exactly. Well said. Well said. That's a great note to end on. Thank you for this really in-depth interview on Gravity Point Institute and the work that you're doing and your book. And I would love actually to have you back as your anthology develops,
Oh, thank
like
you.
in future seasons of the show, so we can talk more about your work and about Gravity Point and helping people delve deeper into self-regulation.
Oh, well, I would love that. I had fun. This went by really fast. I really enjoyed
Oh,
it. Thank you
well,
for having
great.
me. Yeah.
I love to hear that. That's terrific. Well,
Yeah.
we're going to add more fun to it now because we're going to finish with the Feel Good Five.
Okay.
So we're going to do 5 rapid fire questions designed to give our listeners a little extra uplift and let them peek under the hood of somebody who's doing this kind of work and what helps them get through the day and helps them get through life. And here we go. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. What is your favorite feel good song?
Right now, Pink Pony Club is
Oh,
probably one of my favorites, but the one that I go to when I'm feeling hopeless is called The Light by
oh,
Sarah Bareilles.
okay. I'll
Yeah, it
check
gives
that
me
out.
hope. Yeah.
Very cool. I love Sarah Bareilles.
Me too. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah. What is your favorite feel good movie or TV show?
So it depends on the day because once I find something I like, I rewatch it a lot. That's kind of my MO. But I turn to kids' movies and animated movies. So I really love Into the Outback. It's a cartoon and an animated movie on Netflix. And then also Leo with Adam Sandler is a really great animated film.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You picked a couple I have not seen. I will have to check those
Great.
out.
Definitely do. They're great.
What helps lift you up when you're feeling down?
Uh, walks in nature, petting my dog, gardening, and then napping. If I'm having a crap day, like I just reset with a nap.
That is a great way to set the reset button, isn't it?
It really is, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What gives your life meaning?
So I think on my most depressed days, I don't feel this way. But I think that just being alive means everything. I think that it is the reason that we're here. The fact that we are breathing and we get to talk to each other right now. And I get to pet my dog and talk to my niece and, have the earth under my ground. I just feel like life itself is meaningful.
Wonderful. And what inspires you?
People doing great things. Like your podcast, I'm not just saying this inspires me. Like watching people do something about what's going on in the world, whether it's, my neighborhood now has a composting service, or watching regenerative farming, or like having hosts like you really talking about like difficult, but, having a really hopeful perspective. Like that's what inspires me, seeing other people making a really positive impact.
Awesome. I am really into regenerative farming these days. I just covered it in the last episode.
So
I
funny.
do one little segment of inspiring news at the start of every episode. Last episode was regenerative farming because I'm geeking out about it.
That is so great. I've been like in a rabbit hole of like composting and watching documentaries and like vegetables and cooking them and eating them. Anyway, we could
It's one
probably
of those words we don't hear a lot yet, but just wait,
we
right?
will. Yes, we will. We
Yeah,
will.
we're going to hear a lot more about regenerative farming in the years to come because I do believe it's going to help us
I
deal with
think
this
it'll be
climate
the
crisis.
biggest game changer. Yeah, the farmers are going to be the ones who save us.
Amen to that. Well, thank you so much, Ashley. This has been a true pleasure. And tell us your website one more time before you go, just to help us.
Sure. So my website is gravitypointinstitute.com. So all spelled out, and everything we talked about is going to be there.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
This brings us to the end of this episode of It Matters How We Treat One Another. Thank you to our guest, Dr. Ashley Ann. To learn more about Ashley and her work, please visit gravitypointinstitute.com. That's GravityPointinstitute.com. And I'll be sure to put a link to it in the episode description. Please subscribe to keep up with all of our episodes, and you can support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/itmatterspatrons. That's patreon.com/itmatterspatrons. For less than a venti hot latte at your favorite coffee chain each month, you too can be an It Matters patron and help to make our show happen. You can also support us by shopping our Etsy store at etsy.com/shop/itmattersmerch. There are links in the description. And now you can save 10% off merchandise at It Matters Merch by entering the code ITMatters10 at checkout. If you want to help reduce hunger around the globe, then please visit WFP.org and give to the World Food Program. That's WFP.org. They are not sponsors of this show. They're simply a cause we truly believe in because combating hunger is so vitally important. Your quote of the week is, quote, "When we self-regulate well, we are better able to control the trajectory of our emotional lives and the resulting actions based on our values and sense of purpose." That is from author Amy Lee Mercree. And remember, please treat everyone with the core 4 values of kindness, respect, empathy, and compassion, and try for love and acceptance whenever possible, because after all, everybody needs love and acceptance. Be well, and much love to you all.